and I want to welcome my first two guests who discuss the fantastic work of the Nanny Solidarity Network. The Nanny Solidarity Network is a grassroots worker and migrant-led mutual aid organisation. They provide support, resources, emergency aid, community, and a space for collective action to nannies and au pairs based in the UK. The NSN works closely with like-minded organisations to provide free and fair immigration advice to members, as well as access to employment support through the IWGB Union. A big comrades welcome to both Veronica and Miranda. Welcome to you both. I hope you're well. First of all, can you let us know about your roles in the National Solidarity Network? Thank you.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having us. Should I start, Miranda?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm Veronica. So I'm a coordinator with the Nanny Solidarity Network, but I'm also a co-founder. And our structure is pretty non-hierarchical. So yeah, we all kind of work together. And I'm also a nanny in South London, and I've been a nanny for 9 years now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Veronica. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for coming tonight. Miranda.
I'm Miranda. I'm also a nanny in South London, although only for about 1.5 years. And with the Nanny Solidarity Network, I'm working on trade union development.
Fantastic. It's fantastic to have you both. You're doing absolutely vital work and really interesting work at a fantastic time. So I've got a few questions and really interesting discussion and to hear from you about some of the things you're involved in. So can you explain to us, maybe some of our viewers who don't know, what is the Nanny Solidarity Network?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I feel like you gave us a really good introduction anyway. So I think you kind of said it. We're a grassroots mutual aid organisation. We're worker and migrant led, and we're providing support, financial aid, resources and space for collective action. So we are a pretty new organisation. We started in May of last year, and we were started by myself and another nanny, Anne-Marie Sanguini. And I guess the idea was that the childcare sector was already on its knees. It was really underfunded. The nanny sector in particular is really underregulated. And then with the lockdown, we were seeing nannies who were being made homeless as well as jobless. It was really sort of dire straits. So we started off as a hardship fund, and we got together and started raising money. We started raising money in sort of May. We raised £9,000 in the first 2 months, and we were able to get hardship payments out to 45 nannies. And from there, we realized that there was just real demand to see some change in the sector, and also just to see some more support. So we made a WhatsApp group, we kept organising, and we were able to build a really strong team of organisers. And now we offer free English classes, we offer welfare support, we do emergency housing for nannies, and also one of the most exciting things we're doing is we're working with IWGB to hopefully build a trade union branch for nannies. So something that the IWGB do is they have a holding branch where workers who don't have an existing union branch in the UK can sort of join, and if you get enough members in the holding branch, you can form your own branch. So they've recently formalized the yoga teachers branch first in the UK, and so it's a really exciting way of sort of like being able to put those building blocks together slowly, and we've been able to build up our membership since August last year, and start thinking through maybe some ideas for campaigns as well. So yeah,
sounds fantastic. Yeah, and I saw this week the yoga teacher announcement. Maybe have some people on a future show to talk about that. That's another interesting area. So I guess probably to you, Miranda, then so why organise a kind of union branch now? How did that come about in terms of the onus to go ahead and do that right now?
Well, at the moment, there's no active union for nannies and au pairs, which just in and of itself seems like a good reason to organise the branch now. Childcare work, especially childcare work done in the home, often isn't conceptualized as work. And I think kind of historically this has contributed to the fact that nannies and au pairs have often kind of fallen through the cracks in trade union movements. And it's particularly been the case with au pairs, as their job is often framed as kind of this form of cultural exchange. So with their employers thought of as host families rather than employers. And what this results in is really exploitative situations often, where au pairs are being paid far below minimum wage for their work. But au pairs and nannies are workers, and having access to a trade union where we can come together to take collective action to improve our working conditions is just really important. I think at the moment as well, there are not many places for nannies and au pairs to get the advice they need, or even to share the advice that they have been given, or that they've, the knowledge that they've developed about work issues. So there are online groups, but some of the online platforms are also run by agencies, for example. So nannies who are reaching out for advice don't always get advice from those who are putting their interests first. And obviously, as Veronica said, the pandemic has played a big role in why this branch has come about now, and kind of in pushing childcare workers to breaking point. And particularly recently, we've seen the NEU get a government U-turn on schools. We've seen nursery workers take action through United Voices of the World with their new childcare branch and with Unison. But there hasn't really been the same thing for people who provide childcare in the home. And also with the school and nursery closures, it means that a lot of nannies and au pairs are actually doing more hours than ever to compensate for the closures in unsafe conditions. Yeah, so I think those are some of the reasons why now.
Fantastic, thank you. That's really interesting. And as you said, in our last show, we talked to educators about how they've been organising during this pandemic and how that's different, and how it's been important, exciting, and workers are building real collective power and confidence together in facing up not just the government, but also that linkage with society. It's really interesting to hear. So I guess to both of you, but I don't know if you want to start, Veronica, but about what the impact of COVID has been on your ability to organise. I think it's a real important part of this moment in history, and we should try and document it as best we can. So what is the impact of COVID, I guess, on organising nannies and au pairs at this time? Can we unmute, please?
Oh, thank you. So I think what has actually been quite fortunate in a way for us is that we started in the pandemic, so our processes have had to be we've had to think through COVID and how we organise around COVID, whereas I know that a lot of other organisations have had to kind of completely shift things. That was kind of in our processes from day one. But it has been really difficult because nannies are in isolated settings, similar to couriers, often similar to yoga teachers as well. So it is harder to reach workers, and the points of contact that workers may have with each other throughout the day, so like at playgrounds, at stay and plays, at the school gates, they're not getting that. Often parents at the moment are asking nannies to stay home. So it has been really difficult to reach people sort of on the ground. A lot of our organising has had to be done through Facebook groups, through WhatsApp groups, sort of word of mouth. We've had a lot of specifically like our welfare cases. People know of us now and will recommend nannies to join our WhatsApp if they need help. What I think has also been quite useful is that so for instance, there's the overseas domestic worker with visa, with migrant domestic workers. Those are often domestic workers who are brought into the UK on a visa that's tied to their employers, and we see some of the worst abuses in the sector with those workers. Often they're not allowed to leave the house, and they're established.
Oh, we might have lost Veronica there. Miranda, I don't know if there's anything you want to add as Veronica maybe comes back around, pick up where Veronica left, or start somewhere else. Completely up to you, Miranda, but interested about that COVID and the ability to organise. Oh,
I think she's back, yeah.
Fantastic. Sorry, Veronica, we lost you for a moment. Do carry on. You're in full swing.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying what I think has been useful is that there is sort of a precedent for organising isolated workers in the sector or workers that are hard to reach, because with groups like Voice of Domestic Workers and Kalayan, they're already supporting people, especially sort of au pairs who can sometimes, in the worst abuse cases, be trapped in the home and unable to leave, and they're still being reached by established orgs. So we've almost sort of come in as a new organisation and had quite a lot of support from other groups sort of thinking through with us like how we can reach people. So it's like that precedent in the sector has been helpful to sort of learn from other groups. I think the other concern with working exclusively online is Zooms are really difficult. They assume that people have access to a stable internet connection. They assume that people have a private space to talk, and especially au pairs.
Yep, seeing why that stability of internet connection is so vital. As we went into that 29 general election, what a really good demand that was to have broadband available to everyone. We've learned that now, haven't we? A pandemic's exposed that. Veronica, you're back. I was just saying, I was rambling on about how we needed to have good broadband in every home and how that was a big part of that Labour manifesto. And now it looks, people laughed at it, but now it looks essential, doesn't it? Carry on where you were, Veronica. Thank you.
This is really clearly the issue, is we're having a lot of this in our meetings. So yeah, obviously there's issues with internet connection. There's also issues with finding a private space to talk if people live in with their employers, and also just language barriers. So the majority of our members speak Brazilian Portuguese, and that's great because we have a lot of organisers who speak Brazilian Portuguese. But if someone comes in and they speak Spanish or they speak Tagalog, we don't have the support for them yet, and so it can be difficult to reach out sort of and get a really clear representation of the sector. You know, that being said, we have been able to organise. So we had 50 people get our hardship grant in the end. We've had another 50 in the WhatsApp on top of that, and we've built a team of organisers. So we are confident that, like, if we just keep thinking laterally about it, we can work through it. It might just be a bit of a slower process.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it the other way around, that you're a COVID-ready organisation that then will have to adapt to post-COVID world, which sounds kind of juxtaposition of what I was expecting, but I hadn't thought it through in such detail. But that's really, really fascinating. So thank you very much, Veronica. That's fantastic. Is there anything you want to add to that, Miranda, around the impact on your ability to organise, picking up on some of that kind of Facebook groups, WhatsApp, and obviously the dreaded Zoom that we're on now?
Yeah, I think it will be really good to be able to meet people face to face again when it's safe, because also to kind of build the social connection and build trust between a group of people. I think that will be really helpful.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that will be key. I mean, it brings me on to my next question. You talked about how you're, developing that, organising the work that you're doing during COVID, which is great. What kind of types of demands and issues do you organise around in Nanny Solidarity Network, or do you plan to, I guess, going into the future? I don't know which one of you wants to take that first, but.
So far, Veronica and I have signed on behalf of Nanny Solidarity Network a letter organised by a coalition called Post-Pandemic Childcare. And that letter had quite a few demands, but the ones in it relating to nannies and au pairs include things like for furlough to be accessible to everyone, not just people who are on PAYE, because obviously a lot of nannies and au pairs aren't on PAYE. Ending no recourse to public funds, which is really important, so that migrant nannies and au pairs can access the support that they need to not go into work. And then Veronica's already mentioned it, but improving the rights of those on the migrant domestic worker visa. So to enable people to renew their visas and also to change employers. So those are some of the kind of demands in that letter. there are some other issues that we've kind of started thinking through with the network. So something like an accessible childcare visa with a route to indefinite leave to remain is something that's come up. And then, of course, kind of demands relating to low pay, particularly on online platforms. But generally, I think we really want to generate our demands democratically via a union branch and via the network members, particularly because we're not necessarily representative voices of the sector. So it's really important for demands to come from a group of workers, and particularly workers marginalised due to race or immigration status. So really, this is why we're unionising. It's to be able to create these demands collectively. And yeah, we just really urge any nannies and au pairs to join us so we can work on these things together.
Fantastic, thank you. I mean, I want to come on to now, if it's possible, with you, Veronica, to talk about what does the future look like for Nanny Solidarity Network, maybe in the short term, but also maybe into that longer term, just to give people an insight. It's, like I said, a fascinating area and really important, and will continue to be so. So what does that look like?
The future of the network, I mean, I suppose it will really be led by what the members want and need, and also like what the union members want and need, because, you know, obviously they're two separate entities, but we hope that they can sort of support one another. We almost sort of see it as a trade union with scaffolding around it, because we can provide sort of more holistic support in terms of housing and education on top of traditional trade union support. So I think it would be really great for us to develop an idea of what that looks like, what it looks like to have an organisation and a trade union supporting one another, to make sure that workers are getting really holistic support and getting that community as well, I think. But it will really be led by the members, because, for instance, when Anne-Marie and I started, I was able to access furlough. So I think a lot of the organising originally we were thinking through with campaigns. When we started to build our membership, it wasn't actually what people wanted, and it wasn't what everyone felt they needed. So I think that's something that we're going to just have to keep thinking through together. Yeah, but hopefully, you know, in the future we can have enough nannies in the holding branch to formalise, and then we can start building some campaign strategies. We were speaking with a group in the US called Masahari today, actually, and they were telling us about the things that they've won over the past few years. They've won a pathway to citizenship for domestic workers. They've won time and a half overtime. They've won contracts for anyone over more than 16 hours, like things that we thought were impossible 10 years ago and things that feel impossible here. And listening to them and thinking, well, you know, that's something we could maybe do down the line. I think it feels like there's a lot of potential.
So that sounds fantastic, and it's great to hear about what's happening in different countries. It can always act as an inspiration or reinforce what we're doing here, I think. So that's really interesting to hear, and I obviously like to invite you back in the future to maybe talk through how that's developed. That sounds fantastic. So I guess the kind of last question really from me is, how can the movement support your organising work and your members?
So the first thing is to encourage any nannies or au pairs, you know, to join the IWGB holding branch. And then I think more generally, it's really important to understand the complexities of the sector, and also for childcare work, particularly in the home, not to be undervalued, and the same as with feminised work more generally. Yeah, it would be really, really important to see the trade union movement supporting that. I think some of the complexities that we're working with include the kind of dynamics in relation to our employers. And while obviously we really want to put pressure on our employers to give better employment conditions, the kind of fundamental reality is that parents and carers probably shouldn't be paying for childcare. Childcare should be provided to parents and carers free by the government. So we do kind of realise that, you know, while we're pushing our employers for better conditions, we probably do also have to work with them to an extent in coalition to achieve the changes that we need to see from the government in relation to childcare more generally. So I think, you know, some of the other things Veronica's mentioned about thinking through how to organise isolated work with different employers. And we see lots of overlap and solidarity with sex workers, for example, and we're really inspired by sex worker unionisation campaigns and mutual aid funds like Swarm. And I think finally a really important thing is supporting migrants in the trade union movement. And obviously this does exist, but it would be great to see the movement campaigning for an end to no resource to public funds, campaigning for the end of the hostile environment, because that would be really good for our workers.
Fantastic, thank you. And that sounds excellent. The need for both political and industrial strategies, building that political pressure for a new world, and also working where you are with employers to get the best for your members at the same time. I think that sounds an excellent approach, and it's been fantastic having you both. We've really enjoyed listening to you and hearing about you. It's a really interesting piece of work and really important at this time. So I want to thank you both. Massive solidarity from Strike Map UK to all nannies and au pairs organising. And you've heard there from the Nanny Solidarity Network. So thank you, Veronica. Thank you very much, Miranda. It's fantastic. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.